So guys, today I am at a historic location. It's not that building, but it is that building over there, which was the former home of Laura Secord. Now Laura Secord is a heroine from the War of 1812, and here's some information about her and what she did. 19 miles she walked. You can read it, guys, can't you? I'm going to leave it on there because it's important history, and she is female and a heroine and deserves to be remembered. So that journey she took on foot wasn't the Niagara that we know of today. It would have been quite treacherous. And it was during a war, don't forget, and she left her house, which is there, to walk, I think, 32 kilometres, 19 miles, to warn the British commander of an impending attack by the Americans. And the reason she knew that is because the Americans, on their way through, stopped here, and she overheard conversations about it. So we are going to go into the house. I doubt you can make film in there, but certainly we'll take loads of pictures. But this was her house, so we're going to head on in there to go and get our tickets, and then go and visit Laura Secord's house. Very historic site. Let's go, shall we? Let's go. I'm excited to be here.
Laura Secord. She was born in Great Barrington, Massachusetts in 1775. She moved to Upper Canada with her family in 1795. We believe she met and married her husband James Secord in around 1797, and then they moved into this property here in 1803. And so they lived pretty peacefully here for a few years. In that time they started their family. James was also very successful with a general store at the front of the property, and so everything was looking pretty well up until around 1812, when war broke out against the Americans and the British. And at that time, this area of Queenston actually became a hotspot in the war, not only because it was so close to the American border and thus within range of American cannons, but also because of the portage route that came up the Niagara River here. This was actually the way that goods were getting into the area at the time, and so this land was highly coveted because that was the only way to have goods come into the area. And so one of the first battles in the war was the Battle of Queenston Heights, which took place just up on the hill there. So James Secord did fight in that battle. He was injured in that battle. Their property here was also damaged, so all their windows were broken from cannon fire, and then also their general store at the front of the property was destroyed. And about a year went by, and in May of 1813, the Americans invaded this area once again. This time they were successful when they took over Fort George here and pushed the British up to modern-day Hamilton, and so this area actually became American land at that time. And they decided they wanted to send around 500 American soldiers to get rid of that raid party for good. And some of the American soldiers that were going to be a part of that attack were actually traveling through this area of Queenston on their way back to Fort George here, just through here, and happened to knock on Laura's door for something to eat. And while Laura was making their food for them, she overheard their battle plans to attack Fitzgibbon, and she decided she wanted to do something to try and warn Fitzgibbon about this attack. So the next morning, she exited her back door in this direction towards the Q House. She didn't exactly know where she was going. She also couldn't take any main roads because they were heavily patrolled by American soldiers, and so she was forced to take heavily forested paths. There was also lots of swampland in the area at this time, so not the best traveling conditions. And so this is an approximate route of what she might have taken. We're not quite sure because she did become lost, but it took her approximately 16 hours to walk those 32 kilometers. And by the end, she did run into some Mohawk warriors who were allied to Fitzgibbon, who were able to take her the rest of the way to him at DeKalb House. And when she got there, she told Fitzgibbon what she had heard, and he sent out some scouts to confirm that, yes, American soldiers were in fact approaching. And so we're not too sure how much time Fitzgibbon was able to have to prepare for this attack, but we do know that he was able to gather around 250 Indigenous allied warriors, and together with around 300 in number, including his 50 in raid party, they traveled a few kilometers up the road to Beaver Dam's field right here to intercept the Americans on their way to DeKalb House. And so he had around 300 in number, which still wasn't great compared to the around 500 American soldiers, but Fitzgibbon did have a plan. He decided he wanted to line up all his men in rows so you couldn't quite tell how many there were, and he also told them to make lots of noise, so when the Americans arrived, they actually appeared larger in number than they were. And this was actually a pretty good battle strategy because despite their numbers, this was a British victory. And with this victory, Lieutenant James Fitzgibbon was promoted to Captain James Fitzgibbon. However, his Indigenous allies that fought most of the battle for him did not receive anything, and Laura had to walk all 32 kilometers home. In fact, it wasn't until around 50 years later when she actually received any sort of recognition for what she did. When the Prince of Wales, later King Edward VII, was taking a tour of the Niagara Falls area, he happened to stop in her local church in Chippewa, and there she had a letter prepared for him of everything she had done, and he was very impressed. So when he went home, he told his mother, Queen Victoria, who then sent Laura £100 in thanks. And by then, Laura was around 86 years old, so a long time in coming, but she eventually did get that recognition. Yeah.
Wow. So, no filming inside the house. Two of the fireplaces are originals. The furniture and stuff, whilst it's from that time period, it didn't belong to Laura Secord and her husband James because she'd moved away from this property. But it's pretty awesome. It was from here that she trekked that 32 kilometres to go and warn the British Army that the Americans were going to be or were planning an attack. So she left through the back door and took that arduous journey on by foot to become a heroine of the 1812 war. One of them, I should say. But this is her home. This is where she lived. And I have goosebumps being inside that property, I really do. It's just absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome. You know what I'm like with history. If you watch my channel regularly, you know what I'm like. But I love this. So the colour just added to it. Laura Secord steps through her front door. Oh, goosebumps, guys, goosebumps. So that is just a little museum, but this was Laura Secord's house, where she nursed her husband James. Once when he got shot, I showed you a picture of a musket ball. I mean, he got shot twice, survived, but the musket ball stayed in his body. Wow. Historic location, very historic area. Awesome. So this is nothing to do with Laura Secord really, other than it's a shop and where you get your tickets, and then you'll go through a door at the end there to head over to her house. Awesome.